Okay, so in this example, we're going to set up an X-bar chart, but we're also going to set up a range control chart. So this will be the first time that we actually do both of them. So Roy Clinton's mail ordering business wants to measure the response time of its operators are taking customer orders over the phone. And so Clinton lists below the time recorded in minutes from 5 samples from the ordering process with 4 customer orders per sample. The population or the process standard deviation is known to be 4 minutes. And so what we want to do is we'll develop the mean control chart using a 90% control limit, and then we'll also do the range control chart. So if we go and we take a look at the data that's collected, we have 5 sample sets, and each sample set is 4 data points. So data point 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so now we want to put together that mean, or that X-bar control chart, or mean control chart, and our range control chart. So we need to calculate out, we're going to need the average and the range. So I do have the process standard deviation. So I am going to be able to do my X-bar chart using my initial formula of the average plus or minus z times the process standard deviation divided by the square root of the sample size. Now for range, the way the range control chart works is we're going to have to go back and look at table 6.1 from our book to get our values, because the range control chart is going to be D3 times the average range for the lower control limit and D4 times the average range for the upper control limit. And so once again, those values are all based on sample size. So I've already filled in Z that we've taken from table 6.2, and that's basically just going back to, if we look here, we want a 90% control limit. And so going at table 7.2, at 90% would be a 1.650 Z value. This is all basically straight from that standard normal table. And then D3 and D4, we would end up looking up the number in our sample, and our sample size is 4. Now we've taken, remember, these 5 samples here are not sample size, that's number of samples. Sample size is how many instances are in each sample set. So in this case we have 4, we queried 4 times, which means that our sample size is 4. And if I go and I look at the range table, it will tell me 0 for D3 and 2.28 for D4. Once again, all based on sample size, which in this case is 4. Okay, so we're going to need a couple things to do that. The first thing we're going to need is we are going to need the average of our samples, because that is what's going to go into our X-bar chart. So this one's easy. We just sit here and we go average, and we're going to select our 4 samples there. And so that gives us an average of 6 minutes. Now, once again, if we want to be technically correct, what we should do, I'm going to hit Alt, hit Enter, and type in MIN, because that is my average in minutes. Do the same thing for range. So once again, I'm holding the Alt key and hit Enter. That gets me to the second line, and then typing MIN for minutes. And then we'll just center that up to make it look pretty. So the average of the first sample set is 6 minutes. And if I drag that down, that gives me my average for all of those. So now I have the average for each of my sample sets. So my average mean is just going to be the average of all of these. Just going to come right down here. And so I have a 6-minute average. And then from there, I want to put together my upper control limit and my lower control limit. So upper control limit is the average mean. Actually, let's throw some range names in here so we can go back, and it'll make things a little bit easier when we are reviewing our notes. So formulas, create from selection, left column, okay. Come over here and just range names. Control B to bold that, and then, oops. wrong button, using formula, paste names, paste list, and there we go. So we have our range names in there. So let's go back here. So our upper control limit. Upper control limit is going to be our average mean. We are going to add to that z, and then we're going to multiply that by the process standard deviation, which we do have, and then we're going to divide it by the sample size. So the square root of the sample size. Now I know it is 4, but I don't want to just use 4. Actually, right now let me put a 1 in there, because I do want to set it up to where if the sample size changed, it would automatically change. Yes, I could just put square root of 4 in there and be done, but once again, I want to get in the habit of making sure that I don't embed numbers in. So what I'm going to do is I want to use the fact that I've got 4 numbers here, and I want it to figure out how many numbers we've got. So let's just go and add one more range name. So create from selection, left column, that gets a sample. Now I want it in my list here, so we'll go and use in formula, paste names, and I just want paste sample. Oh, I've got to tell it where to go. I don't want to copy over that. So using formula, paste names, I'm going to paste the sample and say OK. Oh no, paste names. Oh, I have to paste the list again. That's right. So let me just get rid of all of these, hit delete. Let's shift those just right up. I thought I could just paste the one name in, but it's just you paste it into the formula. Okay, so now I've selected that as these 4 as samples. So what I'm going to do in here is in square root, and we're going to use that count function. So just to count the number of instances that are there, and then we'll put in sample. And I forgot a parentheses, so that kind of got messed up. Yes, it's a little bit longer to do. Could I have just put 4 and been done with it? Yes, I could have. But once again, trying to get in that habit of not putting numbers in. And this is complete overkill, but that's okay. And then I'm just going to drag this down because everything is named, so nothing will index, because the only difference between the two of these is it's going to be a minus. Okay, so I have my control limits on my mean. The lower control limit is 3 minutes. The upper control limit is 9 minutes. And so that's my 90% confidence interval. And so there we go. So now let's do the range. Now, the average range is going to be a little bit different. So I want to find out what the biggest swing from the smallest number to the biggest number in here, because that is going to be my range. How can we do it? We got a couple different ways. We could maybe try to sort these from smallest to largest, and then we could subtract one from the other. But I'm just going to exploit those min and max functions that we have within Excel. So I'm just going to say, let's take the maximum value of my sample here, and then I'll subtract from that the minimum value of my sample. And so what that's going to do is that'll filter through, find the biggest value, subtract the smallest value. Don't have to worry about absolute value at this point because we are taking the biggest, subtracting the smallest. Will always have a positive number. So now if I hit enter there, that gives me a range. So a range of 7 minutes. So if we look, 5, 3, 6, 10, well 10 is the biggest, minus 3 is 7. So the range in our sample is there's a 7-minute range. And we'll just drag that down. Double click there. And so we can see our ranges as they go down. And so from there, we are going to put together our average range. So it's going to be equals, we are going to average, and then I'm going to pick the average range because we got the name in there. I'm going to hit tab, that fills it in. And so that gives me my average range. And what did I do wrong there? I wonder why what got messed up with the name there. Oh, you know, I was trying to use the average range. It's here. I thought we named this here, so I was incorrect in that. Okay, So it's always nice when Excel tells you you've messed up so you can figure out what's going on. So our average range on this is 8 minutes. So we're going to put together our upper and our lower control limit. So our upper limit is just going to be D4 times R bar, or the average range. And so that will give us an upper limit of 18 minutes. And then a lower limit is just going to be D3 times our average range. And so that means that our control limits on the range go between 0 and 18.256. So this is looking at the variation in the average of our processes, and this is looking at the variation in the spread of our processes. In the next video, we'll actually put together that R and that X bar chart.